I'm your number one fan. There is nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'll take good care of you. I'm your number one fan.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. Just want to thank all our fans and listeners. I really appreciate all support. You guys are awesome. This has been a great start to the year with this theme month, I think. But before we get into our film review, let's just give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgooutthere.com. We got all of our, everything about this podcast is on there. We got all of our episodes if you want to listen, our interviews if you want to listen, which we've been dropping a lot of interviews. Definitely want to check those out. We got our store, we got our blog. Mike just wrote a new blog. Definitely want to check that out as well. And all of our social media links are on there: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Please go follow us, subscribe to us on those channels. Share our posts. It helps spread the word, and it's literally costs nothing. So we really appreciate any help we can get to get the word out there. And the last thing I'll shout out is our blood donors. It's just our version of a Patreon. We have the one-time donation, and we have the traditional monthly reoccurring. We get a lot of fans who ask if they want to help support, and that's a great way to help us pay for this podcast, because it's not free for hosting and the website and what we use to record our podcast. It all costs money, so we really appreciate any support we get. Later this week, we'll be recording a legendary blood donor review. If you want to come on our show, or you want us to review a movie, there's those tiers are available to you if you want to do that. Let's jump into tonight's film review. This week is my choice. We kicking off this year with what we call the female lead horror month. My pick, I chose 1990's Misery. I don't know really why I watched this movie a couple months ago. It was just one of those movies I hadn't seen. I get shit talked all the time for not seeing movies. And, I've heard really good things about this movie. I knew about the hobbling scene. So I was like, screw it, let's watch it. Ended up really liking the movie. I think it's really good, even though it's only got basically one actor, one actress the entire movie. Both of them act their ass off. They do a great job. Kathy Bates, I tweeted this a while back. She doesn't get the recognition she deserves, I think, as an actress. I think she's fantastic. And I know it's probably shameful to say, but she'll always be Bobby Boucher's mom to me, even though she's been in way bigger movies. That movie's from my childhood, and I'll never forget it. But
she's the unsinkable Molly Brown, you son of a bitch.
I don't know what that reference is.
That's Titanic, you ass.
I haven't seen that in forever.
12-time Academy Award-winning film. Don't worry about it, though.
That's too long.
It's all right.
Anyway,
Kathy Justin, Bates, I got text proof that says you love Titanic. I got it in text, brother.
It's pretty good.
Text.
Just kidding, brother. Anyways, Kathy Bates, she acts her ass off as Annie Wilkes. She does a phenomenal job being this psychotic, fan-obsessed. She's amazing. And James Caan does a great job, too, considering he's laying down 80% of the movie. I think it's a great movie. I think it's what, as Dustin will say, a classic that deserves its recognition. I would put it up there really high. But I'm a big fan of the movie. Brian, you want to go next? Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm the same way. This is one of those movies where, do I run to rewatch it? No. But is it phenomenal? Absolutely. I didn't see this movie until later in life, so I was able to really appreciate every aspect of this movie when I watched it the first time. Like you said, James Caan, Kathy Bates, you almost can't get much more legend than those two. And I don't say this lightly. Kathy Bates is one of the best actresses of all time. I don't know a bad role that she's ever had. She's absolutely phenomenal. Hell, she won an Academy Award for this performance. Rob Reiner, come on. If you don't know him, do you even watch movies? Spinal Tap, Stand By Me, Wolf of Wall Street, Princess Bride, A Few Good Men. The list just goes on and on.
No, that's Meathead from All in the Family. Come on now.
I'll touch James Caan on the first set of scenes, but yeah, am I ever like, oh, I want to watch a horror movie, I'm going to watch Misery? No. But like I said, I appreciate the movie. I think it's a phenomenal adaptation of Stephen King's books, right up there with the few really good ones I think that there are. And my score will definitely reflect that line of thinking. But hey, I could be a lying dirty bird. We'll see.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah. So I think this was my third time watching this movie. And I'll say this because I think Nico is. I think he has it in his mind because I said on our live stream earlier that I said I can't wait for you to hear it. I like this movie. I don't know if I love this movie as much as other people. And normally, I'm in lockstep with what a lot of people think of as classics, and I understand a lot of the positives about this movie. It's shot really well by Rob Reiner. I think that part's great. Love the scenery. Love all of that. The acting from James Caan and Kathy Bates, phenomenal. You guys already touched on that. It's weird to see James Caan in a role like this. The same way and I know, Dustin, hold your comments. It's also weird to see him in Elf as well, to play those two roles when I'm used to seeing him in Godfather and things like that. But he does a great job.
Simple solution to it being weird to see him in Elf is just stop watching Elf because it sucks. Go ahead, brother.
Anyway, love you too, man. But I think he's really great here. Kathy Bates, anything she's ever been in except for About Schmidt, I enjoyed. But outside of that movie, I think she's phenomenal. She's funny in a lot of stuff. And in this movie, she just plays a complete psycho. I think watching her descent into that madness that we often say is awesome. It's great. Music, when it's used, is great. The silence is used so perfectly as well. I'll say this, though, and I think this is my biggest critique of the film, there's a long chunk of this movie where absolutely nothing happens. Nothing. There's good dialogue, and it's not that I'm not interested, but I feel the hour 45 of this. Like, I feel it by the end. I'm ready for somebody to die. But there's some really awesome scenes. I think the one that we're all that we all really like, later on when she clubs at his feet, all that, it's all really good. And I like the reveal that we get of Annie, the character, of what she has been the whole time. But this movie drags, man. I'm not going to lie. It's not. Brian summed it up perfectly. It's good. It's great. It's got a lot of positives, but it's not something I go rush back to watch all that often because it just drags in the portion or in the middle portion, in my opinion.
Yeah, this movie, I agree with a lot of what you guys said. It is a classic. It's one of those movies. Little bit of a spoiler. I had never seen this movie until I watched it for this. I thought that I did.
Hold up, what?
Yeah, I know.
Say that one more time.
Yep, you're right, Nico. You got me.
Mr. Stephen King.
I know.
Wow.
I thought that I had seen it, but once I started it, I realized, you know what? I don't think I have actually. I think it's just one of those that I just always, in my mind, I thought I did, so I never went back and revisited. But this movie has some really good acting from two characters. It has some really good directing. Rob Reiner actually studied, every Hitchcock film ever made to get how to make a thriller, and I think it shows. I think there's a lot of, if you watch this and then you go back and watch Nico's favorite movie, The Birds, I think you can kind of pick up some similarities in how they're shot as far as atmosphere and the nature and everything. And then the one criticism I will say about this is not the same criticism that Mike had, because Mike, I get what you're saying. There is a long stretch where seemingly nothing happens, but I think that was done intentionally to kind of make you feel his misery, right? Like he's trapped in this house, and we're trapped right along with him.
Fair.
And so I don't hate it in this regard. Now, if it was a movie to where it's like they're looking for something and nothing's happening, and they're in the woods or something, but this one is literally a
Blair Witch. Thanks for hitting that, brother.
No, come on now.
Movie stinks.
This one's like a hostage situation, so it's almost like you're being held hostage too. But the acting between Bates and Caan is so good that it's forgivable. My criticism is that every actor outside of Bates and Caan is their dialogue is written like a Lifetime movie. And what I mean by that is I don't think that the supporting cast while the sheriff and his wife were hilarious, like I loved the dynamic between them. I don't think that they were necessarily good actors, and I don't think their dialogue was necessarily good. It really felt like a TV movie, and every time we're outside of the house, whereas when we're in the house, we're looking at an Academy Award winning movie, and so there's a very stark contrast in how those two situations played out. But overall, I thought it was a really good movie. Um, the It had some drama. It had some tense scenes, and I'm glad you picked it.
Hey, really quick before you go, Dustin, I had that in my scene by scenes later. There's just everything outside of the two in the bedroom feels like one of those Hallmark murder movies.
Yeah.
That my mom used to like to watch, where the husband kills the wife or whatever, and he's trying to hide it. A lot of the acting outside of the main two characters kind of gives that vibe off to me as well. So I'm glad somebody else noticed it.
Man, I thought Buster and Virginia they had a nice little charm. I liked it, honestly. I like Buster in this
Oh,
movie.
I
He's
love
great.
him.
Well, yeah, I did too, but I'm just
He's
saying, like, in
hilarious.
comparison to
Yeah. I thought I don't like the
Paul and
characters.
Annie, it just
Yeah.
seems like it's like masterclass in amateur hour acting and dialogue as far as how their scripts were written. I don't know. That's just how it felt to me, and I don't hate it at all, because honestly, it provided some nice comedic elements and some nice relief, because some of those scenes with Annie and Paul are so intense that when we get to see the breakout side of it was like a nice relief.
Shining is better. Let's go, baby.
And I think this movie is low key hilarious in some spots.
I do too.
Just
It is.
Caan's
It's great.
reactions, the stuff that she does to him is hilarious. But let's get started because this is it's a pretty big movie. All right, the film starts with Paul typing, and we see a cigarette, a match, and a bottle of champagne on ice. He writes the end at the bottom of the page, and he puts the book in his satchel. He pours some champagne and lights a cigarette. He puts the book in the car and throws a snowball at the tree and says he still has it. Jazz music plays us into a title card as he begins to drive on these snowy roads, and we get our opening credits. The snow picks up and he turns his windshield wipers on. He keeps fidgeting with his satchel and sliding on the road. He slams brakes and loses control of the car. He drives off the road, causing his car to flip several times, and it lands upside down. We now see like a flashback of Paul with his agent, Marcia. He says he used to be a writer until he got into misery business. He never meant for the misery books to become his life. We see Paul in the car again and someone prying the door open and dragging him out of it. They give him mouth to mouth and they carry him in his satchel out of the storm. I'm your number one fan. You're going to be just fine, as Paul wakes up and sees his IV and Annie hovering him. She says he's been here 2 days and she's a nurse. She gives him pills to make him feel better. Sometime later, she gives him more pills and he asks what they are and why he isn't in a hospital. The storm is too bad. The roads are inaccessible and the phone lines are down. Another morning and more pills. He asks if he'll be able to walk again. She says, of course, and she had to pop his shoulder back into place. We now see his terrible leg bruises and her homemade cast and braces she rigged up. She considers it an honor he's in her home to recover. Marcia calls the sheriff of Silver Creek and Buster asks what can he do for her. She says her client Paul Sheldon might be in trouble. She says he checked out of the motel last Tuesday and no one can get in touch with him. Buster says she may be a little overprotective right now. He says he'll call her back if anything comes up. Annie is shaving Paul's face now, and he considers it a miracle she found him. She now says she was kind of following him. She knew where he'd stay and stare into his window of his cabin, wondering what's happening. Paul, I've read everything of yours. I love the misery books. I know them word for word. Paul says he'd like to call his daughter an agent. She says, give me their numbers and I'll keep trying. She asks if she can read the new book early. He gives her permission since she saved him. She says his pain is like clockwork and goes to get his pills. She asks what it's called, but he says he doesn't have a title yet. Libby tells Buster about Paul Sheldon and his stay. Nothing out of the ordinary with his stay. He tells him he drives a 65 Mustang and he's a good guest. He never causes any trouble. He says he's probably pulling into New York right now and Buster leaves. Paul is being fed some soup and Annie says she's only 40 pages in and is brilliantly written, but there's too much swearing. It has no nobility. He says they're slum kids. They all talk like that. Annie snaps now and spills soup on the bed. She says, look what you made me do, and she apologized and begging for forgiveness. I love you, Paul. You're mine, your creativity. And she walks out of the room. All right, go ahead, Brian. That's our opening scenes.
I have a pretty good bit on this, so bear with me here. I know we touched on James Caan some in the opening. I'm gonna throw out Dick Tracy too there because I loved him in that. And I love Scott Caan so much. In a bunch of movies that are probably more my wheelhouse. Based on age.
Yeah, definitely
Go
like
ahead.
Ready to Rumble with David
Varsity,
Arquette.
Varsity
Absolutely.
Blues, baby.
I was gonna
Varsity
go Varsity
Blues.
Blues, but hey, okay.
Oh,
Gone in 60 seconds. Gone in 6 seconds.
Hey,
Yeah, okay.
it's okay,
But
Dustin. We'll crown you, buddy.
I do have a very personal connection to James that I wanted to bring up because, like, I wanted to bring up my most memorable role of his, El Dorado as Mississippi. I actually used to sit down and watch John Wayne movies with my grandpa growing up, and that's probably my favorite James Caan movie. And Caan actually outshines John Wayne in a John Wayne movie, and that's hard to do. So I just wanted to shout that out. Also, I wanted to touch base on the fact that Stephen King was actually reluctant to sell the movie rights on this. It's not really because of his like fear of failing or anything, but because at this point we had The Shining, Stand by Me, Pet Cemetery. But King actually mentioned in an interview how personal the characters of Annie and Paul were to him. So I did some digging, and apparently, way later, he actually finally admitted the reason is because he used this movie as basically a reflection of himself. Lots of similarities to Paul. But Annie basically represents the personification of drug and alcohol abuse in his life. Only he said he only would sell it if Rob Reiner did it. He trusted him, because of his work, obviously on Stand by Me. But to give the performance that he does in this as mostly a bedridden character, James Caan, yeah, you talked on it. He did fantastic. Anyway, as far as the set of scenes goes, good luck, Paul, driving a fucking 65 Mustang in snow like that with no snow chains or anything. Nothing but bad was bound to happen there. Also, I did find the music choice, like he was listening to or like there in the car, like the Junior Walker All-Star Shotgun song. I thought it was kind of weird. Like it's just kind of out of place. It didn't I don't know. It just didn't go there to me. I will say I like the flashback format there to kind of catch us up some. That actually reminded me a lot of Stand by Me, which obviously makes sense. A little fun fact that that car accident actually was captured with a setup involving 9 cameras, and apparently 6 or 7 actually functioned. So they knew apparently that they weren't going to be able to throw a car off a cliff too many times with the budget that they had. So I thought that was pretty interesting to hear. I also kind of laughed when it showed him being picked up and carried over the shoulder. Like at this point, we don't know who it is, but I mean, obviously, we find out it's Annie later. And what the fuck? I mean, she's like a goddamn linebacker or something. She just threw his ass over her shoulder and walked in a blizzard. I mean, like Linda Hamilton gets all the final girl love for her muscles in Terminator 2, but Hamilton, Sigourney Weaver, nobody's touching this shit. Like nobody's doing that. Fucking Miss Olympia here. But lastly, great effects on those legs. Howard Berger and his team definitely made me shiver a little bit seeing Paul's legs. Great job with the realism, the overhead shot. As Annie kind of explains the injuries there. Bates is just so good here. She comes across so damn sweet, caring, like sympathetic, genuine, all the adjectives here. Even the outburst. Besides the only music, I mean, like only the music really right here gave me that whole like Norman Bates, she's a little crazy vibes. Like her acting, I didn't catch it from that. I thought it was great. Go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I like about this set of scenes off the bat is that it just jumps right into it. It doesn't waste a lot of time with some elaborate backstory or anything. It kind of gives us this thing where Paul's a writer and he goes to Colorado to write his stories. It's his method to the madness, if you will. I like that we get into that. There's not like the ton of layers. It's just bam, here's what it is. I do like that they touch on Paul basically being a reflection of how Stephen King felt at the time, that everybody wanted Stephen King to write horror, thriller stuff. And he was kind of trying to change it up a little bit around this time. Maybe write something he was quoted saying, write something his kids could read. And that's kind of reflected within this story here in the actual book. And then it's reflected on film as well. Also, this movie, which we're going to get into, touches on toxic fandom, which is still a thing that movies are touching on. Looking at you, Scream. But anyway, I like that we get right into it. I think the car crash is believable. It looks really good, even for 1990 standards. I just love the way it comes across. I love we've talked about this before, but I think it's worth noting. I love that the snow is kind of a character here. It makes it a little bit more chilling, not to be punny, but that's the only word I could come up with. But I caught that too, Brian. When Kathy Bates kind of lifts a man up over her shoulder, you're like, okay, that's definitely Bobby Boucher's mama right there, man. Because we saw her tackle Roberto, So she's got some linebacker in her. You know what I mean? Roberto. Anyway, but you're right. When you see Caan's eyes open and it's this smiling face, it sucks you in because the title of the movie is called Misery, so you kind of know how it's going to turn out, even if you've never seen it before. But also, it kind of sucks you into thinking, maybe she's not. Maybe she ends up being this misunderstood character. And in the book, she kind of is a misunderstood character, but here, we kind of see very slow, very, very slow progression, descent into madness. I love that she's bubbly and sparkly and kind of clean cut, churchgoer, God fearing, that kind of character. I think Kathy Bates does a phenomenal job playing that off. And it's, again, a character that's not totally in her wheelhouse that she made in her wheelhouse. So I thought that was really well done. The scene with the soup is probably one of my favorite scenes just because it's the first time she leaves that bubbly attitude and snaps. She didn't quite snap all the way, but she snaps just enough to make you go, the hell's wrong with this lady? Jesus Christ. Talking about swearing and all that stuff. I thought the line, they're slum kids, it's what they do, was a little fucked up, but all right. I'm just saying. But anyway, no, I think the end of this set of scenes is really good. And when she says, I love you, it adds just that little bit of creep factor that I do like. So I have no problem with this set of scenes at all. This doesn't feel long. It gets right into it. So I'm going to try not to make it long so no one can complain about how I have a chunk in the middle where I don't say absolutely anything.
Yeah, so the opening set of scenes does a great job, like you guys have said, of setting the tone and drawing you in. The first thing that I wrote down when I was watching it was this guy really expected to travel in the snow in a mid 60s Mustang. Those things are notoriously light in the ass end, and you're just going to think, oh, no problem. I can traverse this mountainous terrain in the snow. He deserved what's coming to him. Like everything from this point forward, he deserved it for being so short-sighted.
Right.
But no, when he wrecks and you see the car door opening, I love the way that was shot. I love the way it was shot from the inside of the car, and you knew the car door was opening, and but you got to see it open while he's in the car, and then he's pulled out. That was just a great job, great choice of how to shoot that scene. Yeah, and I also wrote made note of how damn strong Kathy Bates was. You ain't lying when you said farm strong. Holy shit! But because we don't exactly know how close her farm is to this crash, but it's not exactly too close because that would have been probably the first house that the cops would have looked at if it was right there at it. Which also is kind of creepy. Like, how did she just happen to stumble upon? How long had she been watching him to where she knew that was him in the wreck there? The dynamic that we get is so innocent to begin with. We truly feel like this is just a nice lady who just happened to save her hero, and he lucked up because it's truly just his number one fan who happens to know a little bit of medical training, so she can make sure that he doesn't lose his legs, and she's going to nurse him to health. And you think, okay, maybe everything's okay. Like you said, Mike, we know how it's going to turn out. The movie is called Misery. Like, even if you didn't know that Misery was a character in a book he's writing, like, they chose that name for this movie for a reason. It's obviously going to be miserable for him, but it's like, okay, maybe he does something to cause her to snap. So because of how innocent and sweet she seems at the beginning, when he's talking about the slum kids, I like that when he's like, I'm a slum kid, I would know. I like how she flipped out. It's like, no, people don't talk like that. It's like, how are you going to say what slum kids do and don't say? He just told you that's where he grew up, and you're going to tell him no, they don't. But also, when she freaks out and spills the soup, what the fuck was that soup? Did you guys see how nasty that looked? It was like a slimy orange consistency, and
Some bad minestrone, bro.
yeah, I did not want any of that soup. But also,
Tomato soup, maybe? Is that
see,
what
that's
that
what I
was?
thought it was. But man, that was some thick ass loogie looking tomato soup. But
Well, remember that's her secret. She's homegrown tomatoes.
oh yeah, that's true. But I did like also though when she got pissed off. I hope he was full because she just took his fucking soup away. No more soup for you, bitch. Like she just walked right out. Um, but I did like the opening set of scenes. It draws you in immediately just because of how strong the acting is. Really, not necessarily of anything that happens, because just based off of a car wreck and someone saving them, like this could still be a bad movie, or this still could turn out to be a dud. But the acting and the dialogue and the interaction between them two in that opening scene is so strong that it's like, okay, I know we're in good hands here.
That's going on our TikTok. That was hilarious. All right. All right. We now see Buster and Virginia driving the streets where Paul drove. She puts her hand on his knee and he says, "In this car, you're my deputy, not my wife." And he yells for her to stop. He notices a broken limb and then walks down the side of this cliff, mountain, whatever you want to call it. He looks around and only sees snow. He goes a little further down and sinks deeper into the snow. He turns around and heads back up to the car as the camera pans to Paul's car covered in snow. He says, "Let's go to the newspaper office." They get in the car as Annie passes them. Paul wakes up as he sees the doorknob move. Annie walks in with another misery book. She had to have it. She went to town. She says she called the hospital. He's in no danger if he has no infection. He asks about the roads and the phones. She says an ambulance will come when the roads open. He's worried about his daughter. She's only concerned, and Annie's only concerned with her book on misery. She brings him some breakfast and says she's on page 75. She says the book isn't just great, it's perfect. A perfect, perfect thing. Beautiful nature shots, and now Annie's pet pig Misery comes in the room beside him. It oinks at him, and she says it's time the two meet. "I told you I was your number one fan." She says the farm was dreary until Misery came along. She's on page 300 now, and it's divine. Annie oinks at the pig and chases it out the room. She tells him about how her husband left her, and she almost went crazy. She says she dove into work to get over it. She discovered Misery working night shift at the hospital. She only has 2 chapters left of this book and knows she'll start over immediately. He tells her he's done peeing and hands her the pee jug. She keeps shaking the bottle around as she talks about getting married again. She walks out to finish the book. That night, Paul's asleep and Annie comes in slamming the door. She's fuming mad. "You dirty bird. How could you? She can't be dead. Misery Chastain can't be dead. I don't want her spirit," she yells as she shakes his bed, screaming at him. "She didn't just slip away. You did." She grabs a wooden chair and slams it against the wall over the head of his bed. She calls him another dirty birdie and says she shouldn't be around him right now. "Don't expect anyone to come for you. I never called your agent, the doctor, your daughter, so don't expect them to come for you. If I die, you die," she says as she walks out the room. Paul is visibly shaken as he sees her drive away. He crawls out of bed now and writhes in pain as his legs hit the ground. He crawls towards the door and realizes the door is locked. Buster is on the phone with Marcia again, and he tells her no need to come. They're doing everything they can. Virginia tells him Paul's credit cards had no new charges and no answers to the newspaper article either. Annie asks Paul why he's on the floor. She apologizes for not having a real hospital bed. She gets him back in bed. "I have a big surprise for you." He asks for a snack, but she says, "Listen first." She tells him about asking God about him. She will show him the way, is what God said. She brings in like a grill, and she has his new book in it. She pours lighter fluid on the pages, and and he jokes, "When I said a snack, I really meant cheese and crackers." She hands him a match and says, "We must rid the world of this." He lies about there being other copies, but she calls him out, knowing his superstitious traditions after writing a new book. He says he doesn't have to publish it, but she says unless you burn it, you won't be free. She now pours lighter fluid on his sheets as she says, "This is what God wants. Please help me help you." Paul lights the match and throws it on his book, burning it up. She drags the grill away as the fire is bigger than expected. Heavens to Betsy! She pours water on it, putting the fire out. Isn't that an oogie mess? She drags the grill out and they hear a helicopter. It's Buster looking over the land. They don't see Paul's car, so they turn around. Paul sits his head down, feeling hopeless. Annie asks him about the ozone and shorter winters. She gives him some more meds and takes the matches, walking out. and Paul hides the pills under his mattress. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so kind of harkening back to the last set of scenes too, I want to touch on the fact that I really do like that subplot of Frances Sternhagen's Virginia. She was actually in '07's Mist, that fucking movie. Don't even get me started on that. But yeah, I loved her
It's a good movie.
and Richard.
It's a powerful movie.
Man, that ending of that one makes me want. Anyway, I loved her and Richard Farnworth's Buster. And this whole subplot wasn't originally in the book, and it was created, just for the movie. But I really like that. They're a cute old couple, which I'm not really sure I've ever used the word cute on this podcast before. It kind of feels weird now. But I love the banter with her and wanting to get frisky with Buster, him falling in the snow. I mean, I like all that a lot, but most of all because it kind of gets us the fuck out of this house a little bit. And, also, it does serve for some good tension purposes. Like it gives us a little hope, even though it keeps kind of pulling that away. I love how it toys with our emotions like that. Also bringing up his daughter before and then in the last set of scenes. And then in this one, it's subtle, but I mean, and we never see her, of course, but it does a good job of giving us like more depth to Paul and kind of making him feel more human. I do kind of wish they wouldn't have kept putting so much damn music cues like every time it shows Annie. I was like, okay, like we get she's a bad guy. But on the flip side, I do love how like despite that, it's smartly written where these like conversations between Annie and Paul, they start to go south. She starts to fuck up and let, things slip a little bit, and he begins to be like, okay, I got to get the fuck out of here. And I love this flip out by Annie. And this is just another layer King has added to the story. Mike touched on it. And Mike actually called it a metaphor for toxic fandom, which is much better than the way I worded it. So I'm gonna go with toxic fandom. But it's like that line that create, that the creators like King and others, they have to walk. Like, are you creating new art or are you creating what the fans want you to make? And even though it's yours, I mean, hell, just use Child's Play as an example. Like I've said it before. I mean, it's Don Mancini's. I mean, I may not like where it went, but it's his to fucking do that with. And I mean, he's not creating it just for me. But I mean, anyway, I thought it was a nice little touch to have that, another layer there. I do believe though, if I were him, I would have went with, my agent kind of made me kill her. I didn't want to, I don't know, something like that. But regardless, great acting, great back and forth a million times over from Bates and Caan trying to get out of that bed and fuck those feet look nasty. In that shot, Annie has this nice voice, but then she's like pouring gasoline or accelerator all over him as well. I'd be afraid to light that match if I was him, I believe, to even just to burn that manuscript now that he's got fucking gasoline or accelerator all over her. But I mean, hell, I also kept saying, like, you gonna fucking change those sheets because, are we just gonna pretend it doesn't smell terrible in there now? And last thing I wanted to touch on was the other layer I set, like the scene, the other layer that this set of scenes kind of touches on with the pills, just to kind of tie back into that substance abuse layer that we talked about earlier. Like in the book, apparently he actually becomes addicted to painkillers that she gives him. Just makes making the whole thing harder and more of a hardship for Paul. And all the shit he's dealing with here. But that's all I had.
Yeah, this set of scenes, I give a lot of credit to James Caan because he's, again, lying on his back. The one thing I noticed, he does a lot of his acting lying down with his facial expressions, and I think it's really good. Buster and Virginia, look, it's not that I don't like them as characters. I could just take or leave their stuff. Me and Dustin kind of mentioned it felt kind of more cheap, Hallmarky movie than anything else to me when they were on screen. And it's not that they're bad. I just more focused on what's going on inside this house. I think that's where my interest lies. I'll say this. Now the soup thing would have freaked me out a little bit if I were Paul. But what really would have freaked me out is naming a goddamn pig after my books. Nope. I gotta find a way to get the out of. I don't care if my legs don't work. I'm doing handstand crawls, bro. I am out of here. Nope. That's too much. One, I don't want to be in the room with a pig. Pig are nasty animals. They're cute, but they're nasty. And
he's got a dislocated shoulder too. He broke his shoulder, so he's going to handstand on one end now, Mike.
One stand hops. Let's go. Podcast is a visual medium. If only everyone could have seen me. But again, the way that Annie does that so innocently with a smile. She thinks it's funny. She likes it. She had she named the pig after Misery. She thinks in her mind he's gonna like that. That's good to him, and his facial reaction to that pig is so timely and funny. James Caan actually has a lot of one-liners in this set of scenes here that I think is really good. I like that we kind of get the build-up while Annie's reading the new material. That it's great, it's perfect. This and the Sistine Chapel, the only perfect things in the world or pure things in the world, and then to get the door kind of slammed open and it's dark and you just see the kind of light on Kathy Bates' face. She didn't have to say anything. She's pissed and you know it. And you almost knew it was coming even the first time you see it, but you're just kind of waiting on her to actually flip and become a full-on bad guy. This is the scene to me where it happens, where she's fully lost it. She flips out over the death of Misery. Kathy Bates is fantastic in that scene. It's so good. Again, she doesn't go completely just off the walls bonkers either. She's overreacting, she's yelling, but she still kind of has that innocence, that ignorance is bliss kind of feeling about her, and but in a psychotic way, and I think it works so well to the how different her and Paul are as characters. I think is really interesting, and I love this grill scene. To me, it's one of my favorite scenes in the film. The way that she's like, you have to get rid of it. Again, still keeping her normal, calm demeanor while doing something that's kind of horrifying, because this is someone's work that he poured into, that he's probably really proud of. And she wants to set it on fire, and she makes him set his own thing on fire. That is some warped shit to me, man. And like Brian said, I have it wrote here. I said, I don't know if I'd like that match, man, because she's put some gasoline on him or whatever it was, and I've already got 2 broken legs. I can't move my feet. 1 bad shoulder. My face is all fucked up. My chest, I can barely breathe. She's force feeding me painkillers, and you want me to light a match to set me on fire? No, man. So I noticed that as well. Again, pretty good set of scenes. I think this next set of scenes to me is where we kind of get a little bit of a lull, and that's the portion of the movie that I think drags ever so slightly.
So I thought it was another good set of scenes. The acting it just carries. I mean, you can say that for the whole movie, though. There's nothing spectacular that happens in this set of scenes other than the fact that you do finally get to see that this bitch is crazy. She's not just quirky; she's certifiable. With her flipping her shit and coming in the middle of the night and throwing the shit up against the wall. She's crazy. And then, I thought the scene where he dropped out of bed and crawled over to the floor, that I like the way that was shot too, because you really got to see his pain and his struggle in doing that. And like you said, Brian, his feet were nasty. So great job by the makeup department. At least I hoped it was makeup department. If not, then my man needed to go see the doctor. He had poor circulation, it looked like. Then you get Buster in Virginia, and I guess Virginia's character didn't even exist in the novel. She was written specifically for the movie. Um, could have left her out, honestly. I mean, like I said, it provided some nice laughs, and I liked them as people and as characters, but it didn't do anything for me one way or the other, because a lot of the dialogue and the acting just felt, like I said, like a Hallmark movie or a Lifetime movie. Um, and we get to where she brings the grill in and she burns the book and she pours a lighter fluid or whatever it is all over the bed. Um, I'd kill her. Like, right here is where I would make up my mind that regardless of how this turns out for me, she could end up saying, okay, I'm going to let you go. I would kill her. I would come back, even if it was years later. I'd find my way back to her and murder her because of all the hard work that he put into this book. She's going to burn it right in front of his face. Nah, that ain't going to work for me. The scene where Buster is, in the helicopter, a little cameo there. Director Rob Reiner is the pilot in the helicopter there, so that was cool. And then the last thing that I took note on in this set of scenes was I did find it interesting that I didn't know that global warming was a topic of discussion in 1990. And
Yeah.
who knows if it was even
Yeah.
before this? I don't know. But when she talked about, I think it has something to do with the ozone or something. Like, oh, global warming talk in 1990, interesting. Which I know that Stephen King, he doesn't shy away from political or polarizing topics at all. So, but I just found it interesting because I didn't know that that concept was a thing in 1990. But strong set of scenes. I agree with you, Mike. If you're gonna pick where this movie kind of starts to lull, if I, again, I said I don't think it does, just because I think that's what it's supposed to do. But I think it would be the next set of scenes. So as to this point, though, you're still got stuff going because you still the dynamic is ever changing with Annie because she's still evolving as far as how crazy of a character she's going to get, and you're still really empathizing with Paul as far as he's been put in this situation, and now he looks like he's royally fucked.
Annie is watching a dating show, eating Cheetos in bed. Paul is eating dinner as well. He uses his fork to cut open his mattress so he can hide his novel in there. Annie pushes him in a wheelchair and he jokes he always wanted to see the other side of the room. She gives him an electric razor and says this is a big day. She sets up a new studio for him. She knows he can write a new novel now, Misery's Return. She knows he didn't mean it when he killed her. This will be a book in her honor for saving his life and nursing him back to health. He says this isn't how books are normally written. This is an oddball circumstance. He sees like a bobby pin on the ground as she brings in some typewriter paper. He says she did great. He says he can't write on this paper though. It smudges, and he asks for a different type. He now shows her how it smudges. He says he wants Annie involved in all aspects of the book. She asks if he needs anything else and begins to smart off on him for being picky. He asks what's the matter. She snaps on him about how much he does for him and says she wants more appreciation. She slams the paper on his legs and storms out and heads to town. Paul wheels over to the bobby pin and picks it up. He uses it to pick the lock on his door. He's surprised he actually got the door open. He now checks out the rest of the house. He sees a phone and notices no dial tone. It doesn't work, and he calls her a crazy bitch. We see Annie leaving the store now heading back home. Paul almost knocks this penguin figurine over, breaking it, but he catches it. He sets it back on the table facing the opposite direction. He sees her shrine to misery in him. He goes into another closet and finds the medicine stash. He grabs a sleeve of Novril and leaves out. He makes it to the kitchen but can't fit the wheelchair through the doorway. He crawls out the wheelchair to the floor. He crawls to the back door and tries to open it to no success. He hears Annie pulling in and crawls back. He crawls back quickly to the wheelchair. He makes it back to his room as she heads to the porch. He locks the door back and Annie walks in the room. He's sweating profusely. She asks what he's been doing. He says, I've been sitting here suffering. He begs for his pill now as he covers the sleeve of pills in his pants. She walks out and he covers them up with his shirt. She brings him meds and says she wasn't more popular because of her temper. She helps him back in the bed to get rest before he writes. She gives him a notepad and pencil in case he gets any ideas. Think of me if you get any inspiration. She blows him a kiss and walks out. He hides the pill in the mattress, mocking her, saying, My darling. Go ahead, Brian.
Am I the only one that whenever he was pouring sweat and she walks in and goes, what have you been doing? Expected him to be like, watching Cops. I don't know. That shit was funny to me. But just kind of further showing some similarities with King and Paul. Apparently, one of Stephen King's first typewriters had a malfunctioning N key, just like this one. Now, in the book, another difference here is like the typewriter also drops its T and E keys. Those two letters are second and first most commonly used letters in the English language. So that like made Paul's job even tougher. But anyway, another ridiculously good performance by Bates here with her blow up about the paper. My man's legs are taking a fucking beating already. I'm personally a fan of my legs. I mean, when I'm put down, they always stand up for me. Anyway, another
I'll see y'all next week. I'm out.
Another little Easter egg here, though. When he finds that phone, the black and white photo is an actual photo of Kathy Bates when she was a teenager, and apparently the crew was super happy to film these scenes because they got out of that room. Which, as an audience member, I completely agree. Like I'm thankful for these kind of scenes because I don't know. and it may have been a good thing to do. Like maybe if you stayed in that room, it would have made you feel more claustrophobic. I don't know, but as an audience member, I'm glad to get out of that room too a little bit. And in the book, there's a little more to Annie's backstory than you can really tell, in a movie like wholeheartedly. But she'd apparently gotten away with like killing nearly 30 people up to this point. I did kind of laugh though because I mean, spoiler alert, she notices the fucking penguin, but apparently the 30 open doors that he left all the way weren't the tipping point, just
Yeah.
fucking penguin. I mean, like that's why I didn't really have this whole tension, like as or waiting on her to get in because I was like, man, you didn't even cover your tracks near enough. I mean, but I will though give him credit for showing him shutting at least one door and locking his bedroom back. So props for that. I will at least give him that. But I'm not sure what Hopalong Jones here thought he was going to do if he got out of the fucking door there either. But hey, my man's just trying to stand on his own two legs, right? Um, and I haven't been a fan of the soundtrack up to this point. I don't know. It just feels weird. It just doesn't feel like the right soundtrack to this movie. But in the set of scenes like here, there's a lot of Friday the 13th sounding like little cues, and I don't know. It's just I mean I'm sure you guys picked up on that too, but another good set of scenes. I just maybe would have liked to have seen a little bit more. I don't know. It just kind of seemed like she was gone all the way to town for like 5 minutes, and it's just I don't know the way it played with time. It was weird. But go ahead.
I'll say this. I kind of criticize the set of scenes, and I do think it drags, and I'm going to get to that. But I like the blow up here at the beginning. I think it's again more great acting by Kathy Bates. But I like the way that Paul's brain is working. This isn't the right paper. It smudges. I can't type on this. Hey, will you go get me some more paper? Just to get her out of the house, away from him. Like, whatever it takes. I like that he's thinking on his feet, if you know what I mean. Anyway, sorry, had to do it. But, yeah, okay. I don't mind Paul kind of trying to go around the house. I think this scene drags because I think he's crawling around and rolling around for too long to me. Because again, my focus, I'm a little bit opposite of you, Brian, so maybe that's why I feel it drags. My focus is on the room. And I want to be in that claustrophobic feeling in that room because I think that's where my tension is. That's where I find the story to be interesting. So when he's out of this room, it's kind of, the facial expressions Caan makes, and it's not his fault, but they're kind of goofy. I laugh at some of them. I can't help it. It's not his fault. That's just the way it is. You mentioned the open doors. To me, I took that as Annie's naivete. She comes across very, like, again, God-fearing, good heart, besides the fact that she has mental whatever. But she comes across as nice, goody two-shoes kind of person. And I feel like even though she's smart enough to kind of pull this stalkering thing off and apparently all these other murders, she's still naive in certain ways. So part of me thinks she has this in her mind that, he would never do that to me. I've taken care of him this whole time. She's naive in that way. And I think she kind of forgives him, sweating almost and leaving all the open doors. Like she's not even thinking about that until later with the penguin, which we're going to get to. But I just think there's a few times in this set of scenes where she's completely, she trusts the wrong person. She goes to the store to buy him different paper. She shouldn't have trusted him there. And she should have realized all the open doors means that he's been out and about. So I think it's kind of leaning into her character a little bit, in my opinion. But to me, the scene just drags when he's on the floor. I don't find it all that interesting. I want them to be back in the room interacting because that's where I like to film.
Yeah, this set of scenes is like you said. I mean, I wanted more to happen just because I feel like only thing this one really did, or this set of scenes did, is really drive home some things that were already established. So I wanted, a little bit more action or a little bit more eventful things to happen. First of all, Novril is a fake medication that was made up for this story. In the book, they describe it as having a bitter taste, and the main ingredient is codeine. So if he was really taking that
Scissor.
much codeine, yeah, if he's taking that much codeine, then it's no secret why my man was so sleepy in the beginning. And then once once Mackenzie Milton hops out of the bed and gets out of the room and goes around the house and discovers some stuff. First of all, if I pick up
Come
that
on,
phone
man.
and I see that it is a fake phone, then nah, I'm done looking around. I'm just gonna get a weapon, because if this bitch is setting up a prop phone, then she's like not just crazy and a threat to me. She's just crazy and a threat to herself at this point. So I'm just gonna get a weapon. Um, I I kind of hate how they shot the penguin falling off and him putting it back down that way, because it was very obvious that that was going to come back into play. Like I would have wished that they show him knock it off. Like even show first of all quick reflexes there, nice catch, but maybe don't show him put it back on the table, or don't show the penguin at that close of a zoom, because then it's like you're just waiting for her to bring it up. Um, so it kind of spoiled that a little bit. But I did love the quick wit and the quick, on your feet thinking of when she came in the room. It's like, your color's different. What have you been doing? And he's like, I've been laying here suffering. I too, Brian, I would have. I mean, obviously he wasn't watching Cops, but that would have been so funny. Um, but no, I thought that it's not a bad set of scenes. I don't think there's a bad set of scenes in the movie, but it's just nothing eventful enough happened in these set of scenes, considering how strong the acting is and how strong the story clearly is. I wanted a little bit more.
All right, back in the helicopter, and Buster finds Paul Sheldon's car. We now see a deputy talking to the media. They say he's dead and buried in the snow because if anyone else would have found him, they'd have taken him to the hospital. Buster looks at the car and sees the pry bar marks. Virginia says, "You don't think he's dead, huh?" We now see Paul pouring the medicine into a piece of folded paper. He's sitting at the typewriter now, blank faced, then starts to type. Fuck, 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 fuck. Then he balls the paper up. Annie walks in and says to throw it all out is not up to his standard. She tells him about growing up in Bakersfield and going to the movies to watch cliffhangers. Her favorite was Rocket Man. She didn't cheer when Rocket Man blasted off. He didn't get out the cocky duty car. She tells Paul he'll have to start where misery is buried in the ground and walks out. Some snow shots, and we see Annie reading over Paul's new work. She tells him you better keep working as she praises his new work. She wants to read each chapter going forward now. He tells her she'll have to wait, and she spins in circles of joy, shouting, "Misery is alive." She says she's going to put on her Liberace records. Paul asks Annie if she will have dinner with him tonight to celebrate Misery's return. She's shell-shocked. It would be an honor. Virginia tells the caller Buster's not here. He's probably having an affair. He takes the call and says he can't go down there. He tells her if I can't find Paul Sheldon, I can at least read what he wrote about. That night, Paul and Annie sit down for dinner. They start to eat, and he says this meatloaf is the best he's ever had. Can't get this in a restaurant in New York, he says. He says, let's have a toast together to misery. He pours her and himself some wine. Before they drink, he says, let's do it right. He asks for her to bring some candles in. She leaves, and he grabs her glass and pours the medicine in it. She gets back to the table and lights the candle. They go to have a toast, and she knocks the candle over and then spills all of her wine. She's upset it happened, and Paul is in utter shock. Can we pretend this never happened? They now have a toast of misery. Upbeat music plays as Paul goes to town on this typewriter over a period of time. We see Buster reading the books as well. Annie says this is the best misery he's ever written. It begins to rain, and we see Paul doing arm presses with the typewriter. Annie walks in looking depressed. She says the rain gives her the blues. She says she loves all of Paul Sheldon now, not just the writer. I know you don't love me. Don't say you do. You'll never know the feeling of losing someone like you when you're someone like me. Why would you lose me? He asked. The book's almost finished. Your legs are getting better. You'll want to leave. He says, I like it here. Why would I leave? That's nice, but not altogether true. She shows him a gun and says sometimes she thinks about using it. I gotta go. I might put bullets in it. She walks outside into the rain and drives away. All right, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, just to kind of add another layer here is, that kind of as they find the car, Paul is obviously assumed dead. Coincidentally, 9 years later, after this was released, King was hit by a car with some initial reports saying that he had died. Um, King actually ended up purposely incorporating that particular accident into the Dark Tower 7, and apparently also mentions Annie Wilkes in that one as well. A few random thoughts I had written down here, like why is he putting those holes of those pills in his mouth and swallowing them why not just stick them back into the bed? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he obviously did something with that pack of powder and to hide it as he wrote the book for days, right? I mean, and this, I don't know. I mean, and this may sound weird, but I almost wish that they didn't show him making that powder and maybe had like a flashback scene or something, like flashback to him showing him doing it once she spilled the wine or something. I don't know. I almost would have wanted to believe for a while, kind of like what Dustin was touching on earlier. Like, don't spoil it for me,
Yeah.
don't spoon feed
Or
me.
maybe not even a flashback. Like maybe we don't even know until he takes the pills out of the mattress to make the concoction, and that's how we realize. And like all the pill casings are still there, and so like
Yeah.
yeah, I agree that would have been much more effective.
I don't know. I kind of wanted to believe for a little bit that he may have been getting Stockholm syndrome or something. I don't know. I kind of maybe, I know he was fucking around with her, but I almost wanted to believe that a little bit. I don't
Yeah.
know. Bates is just unmatched in this set of scenes too. I mean, especially at the start where she gives, those two big speeches, and that's obviously that's helped by those close-ups on her face when she's kind of losing it some. I mean, Kathy Bates had to say some stupid shit, and I don't know anyone else who could have made me believe it, but I did. I mean, she was fantastic. I mean, I had to say if I was Paul though, all of her questions, I would have been like, look, what exactly do you fucking want to happen to Misery? And I'll write it in this goddamn book. Like, what do you want? Like, I don't, no, I don't know. But this exchange between Virginia and Buster about him having an affair and him being flattered, she think he had that much energy. I felt that hard. And that may be the last fucking or the best line in this movie. I died laughing. Those two for real really have me invested more in them, honestly, than anything almost. So I'm kind of the opposite, I think, of you guys on that. Um, you see, it's that kind of sarcasm that's given our marriage its spice. I don't know. I love that. That's fantastic. And they missed an opportunity here for Misery 2, Revenge of Virginia. Just saying. I mean, look, they left a lot of money on the table.
Oh
here, Steve.
God damn it!
I'm here for it.
I mean, look, I know Stephen King's rich, but you could have been Mike Settle rich. But here we are.
Oh,
You
fuck
could have
off!
had,
God, dude, if I had
But-
Stephen King's money, I'll never see my fat ass again.
But the last thing I wanted, like the time, I kind of talked about that earlier. It's kind of fucked up with her feeling like she was only gone to the store for 5 minutes. The time period here, it's like later in the movie, she says that she'd been writing like Paul Sheldon for 4 weeks. So that's the only time I really get it. Okay, there's a time frame here. But if you pay attention to the window while he's writing, it feels to me like a fucking year has gone by. I'm almost feeling like we're seeing like seasons of the year. And so I'm like, how long is he fucking writing these books? But then again, or writing this book, which I know it takes forever to write a book, but then you're cutting to Buster still trying to read the 7 books. And I don't know how long it fucking takes to read 7 or 8 Misery books, but a year, I was like, what is going on with this time? But anyway, I didn't read the novelization of that, and maybe this explains it a little bit better. But that was kind of, like I said, that was kind of weird to me. Go ahead.
One thing I do like about the character of Buster here, and I'm glad he's in the story, is that he doesn't quite buy the whole he's just gone. I think, in the real world, a lot of other cops are like, well, he's dead, whatever. He wouldn't continue to investigate. And Buster, to his credit, even though sometimes I think he's a little bit of a stereotypical horror movie kind of cop as far as his character goes, I feel like he delivers on thinking there's more to this story than meets the eye. Finds the car, which that's like finding a piece of hay in a needle stack to me, but okay. Finds the car as snow begins to melt and all that stuff. Like, okay, that's fine. But to me, the star of this set of scenes is Kathy fucking Bates, man. I mean, we've given her flowers, so I don't want to overdo it again, but her facial expressions throughout this set of scenes is incredible to me. Her never being quite satisfied with what Paul is writing starts to get on my nerves. She's finally gotten to where I don't like her. And it took a little bit because the acting is so great. And me and Dustin are wrestling fans, so I kind of relate her character to, wow, you're so good at playing the bad guy that I don't really hate you. Like you're such a good villain that I have to respect the levels that you go to. People just have that innate ability to make you hate them, but they're so good at it, you love them. And so, but as she begins to pester him and annoy him while he's writing the story that supposedly she wants, It's never quite good enough. Brian, you mentioned why doesn't he just say, what do you want? What would you say you do here? Kind of vibe. And but she doesn't want her story of misery. She wants his story because he's the genius and his writing is what she's latched onto this whole time. It's given her a reason to live, to kind of stay in it. And so she doesn't want her brain. She wants what his brain thinks, but she wants her idea of what his writing should be. That's more so what I took away from that is be the old, and that's kind of what Stephen King's talking about in the book is do, kind of like dance, puppet dance. Brian, you touched on it with the Child's Play franchise, but there's all kinds of horror franchises that we talk about that kind of do the same thing where it's like, well, this doesn't fit with the rules of the franchise. This doesn't fit within this and that. And that's kind of, again, commenting on that toxic fandom again, where she's like, nope, this isn't good enough. Redo it. And he's like, well, I'm doing the best I can here. This is me. This is what I do. I don't know what you don't like about it. You're not being very specific. You're just saying all these obtuse things. I worked another Stephen King line in there. You're welcome. Anyway, but yeah, again, it's not that this set of scene drags, but because it does start to pick back up, after the rain, the dinner and everything. So I just think the next two set of scenes, I'm reinvested. They were able to bring me back in and bring me back around. But the acting from Bates in this set of scenes really stands out more than anything.
Yeah. So this set of scenes to me, most of it could have just been, a classic '80s montage. Play some Push It to the Limit and just like give me recaps of what's happening in a lot of this set of scenes. Really, like you
Steel
said,
Town Girl on a Saturday.
it does start to pick back up, but a lot of it's just, I don't know. It was just okay. The line where she said, you're almost done. Your legs are healing. You'll want to leave soon. I've been like, bitch, I wanted to leave a long time ago. I wanted to leave when you spilled that orange gunk on my sheets that you were feeding me. I did think, Brian, kind of in the middle of what you said and what Mike said, you said that, just ask her what she wants misery to end up, right? And he'll write it. And then, Mike, you said she doesn't want that. She wants Paul's. Well, clearly she doesn't because he killed her and she didn't want that. So, I mean, I think that in this set of
she
scenes,
wants her idea of what he's done in the past, what she thinks he should be doing.
what she thinks but see, like, no, I mean, this set of scenes, first of all, when she pulls the gun out, though, that's going to be my mission. The next time I pick the lock with my bobby pin, I'm finding that damn gun and I'm getting the hell out of the house. I did like the interactions we got in this set of scene with the sheriff and his wife. That was okay. They actually did a great job in the movie compared to him in the book of making him have more detective skills and not just accept the fact, oh, he must be dead, because apparently that's how he was in the book. He didn't really seek out finding Paul or, that sort of thing. But overall, you guys touched on most of my thoughts for this set of scenes. So this is probably my least favorite set of scenes in the movie, though, if I'm being honest.
All right, Paul grabs a knife from the kitchen now. We see Buster reading a misery book, and he writes down a quote that says, "There is a justice higher than that of man. I will be judged by him." We see Paul wheeling around the house now. He gets to Annie's memory lane book. We see article clippings about him missing, Annie's father's passing, a top nursing student falling to her death, Annie getting head of the ICU and head of maternity ward. We now see newspaper clippings of newborns dying, and then he sees the clipping of her being put behind bars. Paul goes back to his room and gets back in bed. He practiced unsheathing the knife from his sling as it continues raining. Annie's back home now and stops right in front of his bedroom door, but walks away. He hears her go into her room to watch The Love Connection. Paul hides the knife under his mattress and goes to sleep. Paul wakes up to Annie staring at him, and she injects him with some type of medicine. Next morning, Paul finally wakes up to see he's been bound to the bed. Annie says she knows he's been out. The penguin was facing a different direction as he reaches for his knife. She reveals she already has it. She now shows him the bobby pin key. She now tells him he needs more time to accept being here. He tells him about the Kimberly diamond mine. They didn't kill them. They just had to make sure they'd never run away. The operation was called hobbling. She places a block of wood between his ankles and grabs a sledgehammer. She breaks his left ankle and he screams in agonizing pain. She walks to the right and destroys his other ankle. God, I love you, she says. Weird way of showing it, Annie. Buster sees Annie snap on someone in traffic who almost pulls out in front of her. She calls the guy a poop and goes into the store. Buster asks Virginia for the thing. He finds a note and goes to the library. He reads up on the infants dying at the hospital and how Annie got put behind bars. He sees Annie's quote was the same quote he wrote down from the Misery book. Back to Annie's house, and she waves at him from outside, and he shoots her the bird. Buster goes into the store and asks Pete if he has any Paul Sheldon books, and asks if Miss Wilkes has bought any. He asks if she's been buying anything odd. He tells him she's been buying all kinds of typing paper, and then Buster walks out. Buster is driving out to Annie's farm now. Paul hears the car pulling up, and Annie storms into the room and injects him with more of the medicine. He puts up a fight, but the meds take over. She carries him down to the basement. She doesn't understand why he doesn't trust her. She does everything for him. Buster walks up to Annie's door, and she opens it right as he goes to knock. He asks her about Paul Sheldon. She begins to name off facts about his life, and he says not that kind of information. She tells Buster she's his number one fan and invites him inside. He asks if he can look around. She says she prayed and begged for the accident not to be true. She keeps talking as he looks around. She tells him about buying paper and a typewriter to become his replacement. She turned the guest bedroom into a writing room. She offers him some cocoa and leaves the room. The two have a weird stare down, and he heads upstairs to look around. He doesn't find anything, and she appears behind him with the cocoa, but he refuses and says he's leaving. As Buster walks out, he hears a crash inside as Paul knocks over the grill. Buster runs inside asking if Annie is okay. He hears Paul yelling out, "Down here." He opens the door, and Paul points behind him, and Annie shoots him through his back and chest with a shotgun. And the next set of scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
So first off, Paul, look, probably wouldn't have got. I probably would have gotten a different knife, like not the butcher's knife, because I don't know. I think that she'll notice that one's gone. Just gonna throw that one out there. As soon as he got it, that's the first thing I was saying. But the scene, look, so perfectly done. The piano music playing, and I know they debated cutting his feet off, but to me, like, this is just as effective. Just a perfectly executed sequence there. I mean, there's no wonder, like, this is always on every list of the most horrific moments in film history. And we didn't even see any blood or guts. I mean, hell, the first hit on the first ankle is so well done. I mean, shit, we didn't even need to see the second one. I think Caan is just phenomenal right there, showing that pain. I think he did a great job. A couple of fun facts here. The fake legs were molded out of gelatin. Armatures with wire were inserted into the prosthetic ankles so that after Annie hit them with the sledgehammer, they would bend at the desired gruesome angles. Um, there were some holes apparently so Caan could slip his real legs, up to the knee. And another little funny anecdote I read too is when Caan watched this scene at the screening, he apparently turned to Rob Reiner and laughed and said, "You're a sick fuck," which that makes me laugh. Um, Cinematically, I think that these shots through the window and like how some of them are shot like up through the footboard of the bed, so it kind of gives you the feeling of prison bars. I thought that was a nice little touch. And but shit, man, look, now we come. This is the worst part. I can't believe that they did. Look, nothing compares to my man Buster's death. The saddest gut punch of this entire movie. Break all of Paul's arms and legs. I don't care if they look like fucking gelatin, but killing my man Buster crosses the line. This movie really does just give you that hope, take it away from you with the only side plot just gone. Anyway, just kind of really shows honestly how hopeless it really is. I mean, and talk about hopeless. My man Paul is trying to fight off Annie from stabbing him with a fucking shot. You kidding me? Did we forget that she like manhandled the dude and walked across the snow for miles? My man is not doing enough typewriter lifts to handle that beast. I'm telling you. Go ahead, Mike.
I actually really like the set of scenes. I think the movie picks back up in a big way here. I like that Paul has finally gotten a damn knife. Jesus. Now, I just think it's funny that he didn't quite know what to do with the knife. I think it's pretty funny that he keeps putting it in different places. But anyway, yeah, so I think this set of scenes is really damn good. I love this. She's like, you just need more time, and breaks his feet. That is some good shit. That's probably the most memorable scene from the movie, except towards the end. Man, to see James Caan knowing what's coming and can't do anything to stop it, his facial expressions, I love it. I think it's well acted. And I think it just looks brutal. The effects in that scene look good. Another scene later, I think Dustin knows what I'm talking about. But in this set of scenes, the effects look really good. And I think it's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. I kind of like, again, I like that we have this running arc where Buster's reading all the Misery books, kind of trying to dive into the mind, ends up at Annie's house, just still trying to figure out anything that's possibly going on, kind of does a little bit of research. And he's suspicious of Annie's house, there's no doubt. And I don't necessarily think Annie does anything over the top to give herself away. This is just who she is as a person. She's bubbly and up in your face and talking, not really shutting up. The hot cocoa thing, I think, is funny. And their little stare, or they're not necessarily the stare down, but where she's watching him from down the hall, that whole exchange, I think, is really, really good. I love the way it's shot. She's kind of blurry in the back, but you still see her. I honestly thought when Buster's walking up the stairs that he was going to find Paul, but that didn't happen. And you knew Buster was going to die. It sucks because he's kind of a likable character, but it just kind of you knew it was coming. Brutal kill. Not going to lie, Annie, you little nuts there, girl. But anyway, I like this set of scenes because to me picks the movie back up. We're in the home stretch. It's a little more intense, and I like that about the set of scenes.
Yeah, this set of scenes is great. First of all, what kind of crazy bitch keeps all the newspaper clippings of all the crimes that she's committed? Just the signs are on the walls that they should be padded. I love the great way the jump scare was shot of when she comes home, you see the feet in front of the door, but she doesn't come in. I like how they tease it there, but then boom, there she is when he wakes up. Now the scene with the ankle, holy shit, that was brutal. I thought that was a great job, great effects of making it look realistic. It was so quick that they didn't have to do a lot. The camera wasn't on it a lot, but they could have fucked it up very easily. And Brian, you mentioned how they thought about doing, cutting the feet off. I'm glad they didn't. They didn't do it because they didn't want it to be that gory, so they wanted to tone it down some. But given how shitty the effects are, and something we're going to see in the closing scenes, I'm glad they didn't do it because it would have looked awful. I like seeing Buster piece it all together. Like, it was really cool to see him. He wrote down the quote, and then he sees the same quote. Then he sees her with some little bit of a road rage, and she goes into the store. Like, I like watching Buster do his detective thing. And then when he shows up at the house, hell no, I wouldn't drink that bitch's cocoa either. She's fucking certifiably crazy. It probably had all kinds of laxatives, Rufalin, and Viagra in it. So hell no. I did think that it was funny when you hear the crash. He walks back inside. Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie? And then bam, he was hit by a smooth criminal. That was That was a hell of a gunshot wound, though. I thought the effects on that were great because you could see straight through that motherfucker. Like, that was awesome. But I agree, Brian. That was sad. I like Buster. I did. It sounds like I was hating on him earlier. I wasn't hating on him. It's just in comparison, seemed a bit out of place. But for what he was, I loved Buster. And then they had to go and kill him like that. But overall, I agree. This set of scenes is head and shoulders better than the last set of scenes, and it's really ramping us up to take us home and send us home satisfied.
I just want to throw a disclaimer out there for Annie Wilkes. I don't think she carried Paul all the way back to her farm. To be fair, she probably just parked right up at the top of the road and just carried him up there and threw him in the truck. That's just my assumption because I don't think she could carry that man that far.
Still,
mean,
still
I don't.
carrying his
I
Hey,
mean,
big
she
ass up
picked
the
his
stop.
hill.
ass up.
Stop. Why don't
Man.
you stop adding logic to an illogical situation over there, Chin?
Oh, my bad, guys. I forgot that's what we do on this show. All right, here's the ending. You and I are meant to be together forever, she tells Paul. She says she put 2 bullets in the gun, one for you, one for me. Oh, darling, it will be so beautiful. Paul sees the lighter fluid, and Annie walks down the stairs with the meds and a gun. She says, I love you, and he says, I love you too. He says he knows they should die together. They have the power to give misery eternal life. We must finish the book. It's almost finished. By dawn, we'll be able to give misery back to the world. She turns around, heads back upstairs, and he shoves the lighter fluid in the back of his pants. I'll fix you something to eat as she pushes the wheelchair to the basement entrance. Paul is typing, finishing up the book. Annie comes in asking what's going to happen. He says he'll need 3 things when he finishes: a cigarette, a match, and 1 glass of champagne, Dom Perignon. Back to typing, and he calls for Annie. He tells her he's almost done. Annie walks in with what he asked for and the gun. He said, we need 2 glasses this time to celebrate. He grabs the papers and puts them on the floor and soaks them in lighter fluid. She walks in and he tells her of things no one knew of misery. It's all right here, and lights the final chapter on fire and burns the book. He slams the typewriter on her head as she panics. Not my misery, she yells. She springs up and grabs him by the throat. He gouges her eyes and pushes her off him. She shoots him in the shoulder area as he wheels towards her. He jumps up and tackles her. He gets on top of her, banging her head against the floor. Now he shoves the burnt pages in her mouth, and this is hilarious. Eat it, you sick, twisted fuck. She runs at him, and he uses his leg to trip her, and she falls, hitting her head on the typewriter, which I know y'all are going to say it doesn't look great, and the dummy or whatever they use doesn't look that great.
Doesn't
It
look
looks
He
great.
crawls out. It doesn't look good. He crawls out,
Dog,
and she
it
jumps
doesn't-
on his back. He bites her hand, and he grabs the iron pig statue and punches her in the face with it. She collapses on him dead. He pushes her beside him, finally killing Annie. Now we get a thing on, like a text on screen. 18 months later, Paul is back in the city with Marcia at dinner. She shows him his very first copy of his new book. I think you've got a shot at some prizes this time. Paul tells her he writes for him now. I think Annie Wilkes, the whole experience helped me. She now asks if he'd be interested in writing a nonfiction book about his experience. He thinks he sees Annie as the waitress. As he tells Marcia, he still sees her and thinks of her. The waitress tells Paul she's his #1 fan. That's very sweet of you, he says, as the film ends and the end credits roll. All right, go ahead, Brian. What do you think of the ending?
Okay, so hold up. this may be the funniest part of this whole thing. The start of the set of scenes, like she puts the wheelchair at the top of the stairs, and it's basically like, "Here you go, bitch. Good luck getting back up here and getting back in this thing." I mean, like, I know this movie is almost 2 hours long, but these are the real questions here. Like, how the fuck did he get back up those stairs and get back in that chair? Like, maybe those typewriter lifts are doing better than I thought there. I don't know. Um, and I know we all joked about Annie being strong, but my girl just took a huge typewriter to the head from the top ropes in this fucking hardcore match. I mean, we get eye gouges. I really felt like I was watching WWE here. You know, and I didn't think the effects were that bad on that head. I mean, it was all. I mean, it wasn't terrible. It wasn't the worst. I mean, it was all right. It didn't take me out. It didn't take me out of it. I wasn't like, oh, those effects are fucking terrible. I don't know. I'm worried about how the fuck you got back up the stairs, not really about I don't know. But I don't know. It was okay. I just almost wish that they would have both maybe, I don't know, died or like, I just feel like that if this movie was made nowadays, it would be more of a non-happy ending. Like I don't know, maybe that's something that they didn't really have the guts to do back then. But then again, taking those chances. But like I said, then again, like they were following the book, and I've never read the book, so I don't honestly know how that ends or if it sticks to the source material. I'm not real sure, but but I will say it was a complete acting clinic. I don't know. Just maybe because I've watched so many movies nowadays, I'm almost wanted to see a non-happy ending here. But go ahead.
First of all, the strength of this set of scenes to me is the camera work. I think the camera cuts back and forth between the two of them are great. The the dialogue, and again, she's finally kind of snapped, kind of lost it. That full on "I love you" kind of like last ditch effort. I think that's played so well. Caan is really good here as well. He doesn't ever really get the credit he deserves in this movie, in my opinion. So I'm glad that we got to do this show, an episode, to kind of give him his flowers here. I, Again, they kind of stuck to the book as much as possible. They don't go as deep into what happens to Paul after this whole experience, but I like the ending. I think Annie got what she deserves. I like the kind of reveal that this does with all the newspaper clippings and stuff like that. I think that's a really good way to kind of reveal who Annie actually has been this whole time. She's not just some fan that lost her marbles. She's been this way for a long time, and I like. Again, she's Nurse Ratchet, but not really, because the what they're both trying to do are completely different things. But the similarities are there, and I like that Paul finally gets free. That's good. Hate that it had to come at the expense of my man Buster in the last set of scenes, but it is what it is. They kind of go back to the city and Paul's normal life. And in the book, they touch on the PTSD he has, the alcoholism, and stuff like that. They don't quite give us that here. They kind of take an easy way out, in my opinion. I do feel like if this movie were made a little more recently, we would get a more truthful adaptation to what happens to Paul after this. But it's still not, to me, it's not the world's happiest ending, Brian, a little bit, because he's back to writing misery stuff he was trying to get away from. He was trying to end the series, and he's kind of right back where he started after the whole experience. So it's kind of how, again, true to King's life, where he wrote a different kind of book. It wasn't received well, so he went back to writing stuff like Misery. And so art imitating life there, a little bit of meta there. Sorry, Nico. But I like that we don't get a completely happy ending, because it's still not the life that he wanted to live, but he's kind of made his bed. Now he has to lie in it. So I like the ending enough. I just wish it would have dove into some of the stuff the book got into.
So, as far as the ending goes, I love the hint at Stockholm Syndrome that they give. Like, he really appears once he's finishing up the book. It looks like, okay, he's fully bought in at this point. First of all, shout out to him. I wouldn't have wrote that much. Like, that motherfucker wrote a shit ton. But I would have just, wrote enough, like maybe 100 pages or so, and be like, nah, this story doesn't need to be this long. But anyway, you get the hint of Stockholm Syndrome, where you think that, okay, he's bought in and he's okay with her. They're on good terms. But then you just get this fantastic middle finger that he gives her by burning the final 4 pages and setting the whole thing on fire. And just, I like that he's like, I don't care how much time and energy I've spent writing this piece of shit book that you wanted me to write. I'm going to burn it all, you dumb bitch, because you burnt my masterpiece. I do love how he bashed the absolute fuck out of her skull with that typewriter, and she has popped up like nothing happened. But then when he tripped her and she landed on it, it's like, oh, that's a knockout blow. Like he meleeed her with that damn thing. But I did get kind of a similar feel to the ending that I got from Child's Play. It's like, damn, how much is it going to take to kill this bitch? like she seemed damn near indestructible for a minute. But we do get our happy ending. He makes it out alive. We get to see him back assimilated in the public, and I like that. But I love the way that it was shot, where he's talking about it and he says he can still see her, and then the waitress or the server walks up and she looks like him, and then we see this really not her. I thought that was well done. And then the whole "I'm your number one fan." That line and the way it was delivered was so chilling, because that's, that he's got to have PTSD from that. Like, anytime from that point forward, Paul Sheldon, anytime someone says "I'm your number one fan," he's going to be triggered like a motherfucker, and understandably so. He's going to start, asking for a wheelchair just out of habit. But anyway, I thought that the ending was fantastic compared to, in comparison to the rest of the story. You can always nitpick things, but I don't have any anything pressing that I was like, I wish they would have went this direction. I was very satisfied.
How many times do you think we mentioned Child's Play in this episode? And an alarmingly amount of times, and all of us did, I think.
Yeah.
Y'all got any more final thoughts, or you just jump into social media questions and comments? All right, let's start with Facebook first. Michelle Mirza commented, "What a great pick, Nico. Thank you. I remember seeing this in the theater when I was 12 years old. Phenomenal acting from both lead roles in this movie. I don't think anybody will debate you on the portrayals from both actors. They were phenomenal." Samantha Davis had commented, "Have you read the book? It's a great read, and the movie is a pretty good interpretation, I think." I have not read the book. Has anyone else read the book?
I have not.
No, I
I'm not
said
a
enough
reader.
in this episode to make it seem like I read the book, but I
Yeah,
really
I
didn't.
did my research. Yeah, I did my research on the book, but I've never read the book.
Yeah,
Missy
His books are
Hutchinson Wall
long as
commented,
shit, man.
Yeah, I ain't got time for all that. Missy Hutchinson Wall commented, she said, "All right, I love this movie." And speaking of Missy, we'll be doing her blood donor pick in a couple days. So
That's
looking
right.
forward to having you on, Missy. Appreciate you commenting. Let's jump over to Twitter real quick. Sean Irwin commented, "I still cringe at that one scene. She definitely earned her Oscar for this movie." Absolutely, 100%. I agree.
Buster getting killed. That's got to be the scene you're talking about. I
I,
completely
I, I
agree.
don't think that's it. I don't think that's it.
I think it was the orange goo that she was trying to feed him.
Yeah, it's probably.
I mean, that shit looked worse than Color Out of Space.
Lamar Lovelace commented, "The scariest woman of my life. Nobody sent chills through me like this sadistic book freak." And then he commented again, "That's what was scary. Warm, comforting soup to a poison elixir. She was insane."
Yep.
I agree. And if any of y'all are Georgia Bulldog fans, y'all check out their podcast. Lamar's a great fan of the show. He's very friendly to all of us. 100 Sanford
Absolutely.
podcast.
Yeah.
He's a great dude. Y'all check him out. All right. Kevin Scanlon commented, "Great choice, guys. By the way, I'm your number one fan." Appreciate it, Kevin. We appreciate the support, man. And last one we got is from Shan. She commented, "Definitely an iconic movie that is one of the better adaptations of a Stephen King book. Solid choice, and can't wait to hear the guys discuss it." Appreciate you, Shan.
Yeah, Shan, I
your
agree. It is one of the
continued
better
support.
adaptations. Christine is the best.
I knew that was coming.
Christine's not only a bad book, it's a bad film, and you should feel bad for liking it. Anyway.
All right, let's jump into our fun facts. Does anyone want to go first since I just talked so much?
I can knock mine
yeah.
out. I just got a few.
Go ahead.
So James Caan, which showed up to the set hungover, and all the scenes he shot that day were unusable. Rob Reiner told Caan that he had to do the scenes over again because there was a problem at the lab. When Caan learned that it had nothing to do with the labs, he offered to cover the money he lost the studio. So that's a noble gesture.
Absolutely.
Jack Nicholson was offered the role of Paul Sheldon, but passed because he was not sure he wanted to do another movie based on one of Stephen King's novels after what he had experienced with Stanley Kubrick on The Shining. I don't know if that's him taking a shot at Stanley Kubrick, which I assume it is, but I'm glad he turned it down.
As well.
I'm glad he turned it down because I love Jack
me
Nicholson. Like, he's top 5 actor probably, but Caan just really killed this. Here's a list of names for you as far as some other people up for it. According to William Goldman's book, 4 Screenplays, the role of Paul Sheldon was offered to Warren Beatty, Robert De Niro, Michael Douglas, Richard Dreyfuss, Harrison Ford, Morgan Freeman, Mel Gibson, Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, William Hurt, twice, Kevin Kline, Al Pacino, Robert Redford, Denzel Washington, and Bruce Willis, all of whom declined.
Only person that could have done better than Caan is Brad Pitt. All right, anyway.
Jesus Christ. Willis, however, did go on to later play the role on Broadway years later. And then lastly, the one I have is season 2 of Castle Rock on Hulu serves as a prequel to Misery, and it's Annie Wilkes' story.
That is one TV
I
show
need to check that out.
Not gotten around.
Same.
Yeah.
And
I watched the first season of it.
That's very interesting. I actually had a couple of those, but I'll go with these two here. A video of When Harry Met Sally from 1989, which Rob Reiner directed, is actually visible in the general store while they're in there. And the theme music in one of the trailers for this film is actually a piece of James Horner's score from Aliens, which has been used in several trailers for other films like Dark Universe, apparently, which honestly I've never heard of Dark Universe, but that's all I had.
All right, I just got a few before you go, Mike. Annie Wilkes is Stephen King's favorite written character because she was always surprising to write with unexpected depth and sympathy. I think that's great because Stephen King's wrote a lot of great characters. I mean, geez, that's high
Christine.
praise. James Caan and Kathy Bates clashed over their acting methods. Caan believed in as little rehearsal as possible. Bates, with her theater background, was used to practicing a lot. When she commented to Rob Reiner that Caan was not attempting to relate or listen to her, Reiner told her to use that frustration toward her character. That's brilliant advice, honestly. Towards the end of the movie, it's finally established just how long Paul has been there. Perhaps surprisingly, only 4 weeks have passed since the road accident. The ongoing snow and rain falling would also have covered up the various tire and foot tracks at the crash site, hence the delay in finding the crash site. 4 weeks is kind of hard to believe, so I don't know about that one. The weapons used by the villains in The Shining and Misery have been swapped. In the book The Shining, the weapon was a mallet. In Misery, it was an axe. We've already touched on, about cutting the feet off. But this is the last one I got, and this is fixing me blubbering at the end of Hereditary last week. After that, that was a long review, so I was a little fatigued. But I heard Chris Stuckman say this in his review of this movie, and I wanted to get it down right this time. Bates' performance drew widespread praise from critics and won her the Academy Award for Best Actress at the 63rd Academy Awards, making Misery the only film based on a Stephen King novel to win an Oscar. King himself has stated that Misery is one of his top 10 favorite film adaptations. Congratulations, Kathy Bates. You were phenomenal and you deserved it. Go
Absolutely.
ahead, Money Mike.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, this movie had a budget of $20 million, and the box office gross was 61.3. So I think it's not exactly that gangbusters money making movie, but it lives on as a classic because of the two performances of Bates and Caan, and again, Academy Award winning movie because of Kathy Bates. So I think that's why it's so well thought of, but not exactly the highest grossing film of all time. That's for sure.
Alrighty, y'all ready to jump into the favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating?
Yeah, are we doing favorite kill and least favorite kill, or are we just doing the rating?
I have strong feelings on favorite kill and least favorite kill.
Okay.
Honestly,
I,
my favorite
I say
kill
I do
is.
not.
I'll go first this week. I'll get me out of the way. Favorite kill, I chose Annie. Obviously, I don't have a least favorite kill. I thought even though I didn't like seeing Buster get killed, it looked really good. It was unexpected. It was good. I mean, it was shot well. I hated seeing Buster die because I did like his character a lot. I didn't really write a summary this week. I'm basically just going to say a lot of stuff I've already said. I think the acting is great. The movie was an unexpected surprise. It was a lot better than I thought it would be because the only thing I knew about the movie was the hobbling scene. But beginning to end, nothing really drags to me. I just think it's an acting clinic put on, just like the other Stephen King adaptation we've done with The Shining. I thought Jack Nicholson was great. He kept me entertained throughout the film. I'm just going to give this movie the same rating as I gave The Shining. I'm going to give them both a 9.
I'll go ahead and go. Okay, so I guess my favorite kill is Buster because it looked better, not because I wanted him to die. My least favorite is Annie because I don't think it looked very good as far as the effects go. So I guess that's really all I have. So I've kind of noted everything I like about the film. I think it's shot really well. I think Reiner does a great job. The editing's good, music, all that. The absence of sound a lot. And again, Nico touched on it, and it was perfectly said. An acting clinic between the two stars of this film, no doubt. They keep me entertained as long as they stay in the room. The movie does kind of slog in the middle to me. I think this movie could be about 17 minutes shorter, and we'd have a nice, a little bit of a better film. But it's still damn good. It's a classic for a reason. I just don't think it's super rewatchable to me. I don't think it's something I want to go back to a lot. Like I even do The Shining, and I know that movie's longer than this, so I get my hypocritical nature there. Got it, totally understand. But just for me, that movie hits a little bit more than this one does. But that's not to take anything away from it. I think it's really good. All of that being said, I gave it a 7.75.
You want to go, Dustin?
Yeah, I can go ahead and go. My favorite kill was Buster, just because not because of I didn't want to see him die. That's not the reason. The favorite kill is just because it was shocking as fuck. The shotgun blast through the chest, and it looked great. Like there was a hole in his chest, and so that makes my least favorite kill Annie's because I didn't think it looked as good, and the mannequin head that they bloodied up and slammed on the keyboard really took it down for me as well. Um, as far as this movie goes, like you said, Nico, I was pleasantly surprised when I watched it. I can't believe that I'd never watched it. I really thought that I had. I was just wrong. I don't think that I'll be in a hurry to rewatch it, but I'm definitely never going to avoid it if I'm channel surfing and it's on or something. I think it's a really good movie, really good acting. Um, it's a top 3 Stephen King movie behind Christine and Maximum Overdrive.
Oh,
So, but as far as this movie goes,
two
I
worst
think
ones.
it's fantastic. I think the acting is great. So I'm going to give this movie a flat 8.
This is why they didn't pick us to be on Scream 5. This is it.
Yeah,
Look,
I think the Leprechaun episode is the reason we didn't get picked to be on screen.
just randomly pick an episode. That's why.
No, that's the one.
Best looking kill was Buster. My least favorite kill was Buster, and the worst looking kill I feel like was Annie. So there's all that.
New category.
Look, I fuck with this movie. Like the soundtrack though is one of my biggest complaints. Sorry, Mark Shawman, who was the sound composer. I was honestly disappointed with the soundtrack. And like I said at the start, I'm not going to sit down and watch Misery, but I definitely respect it as a movie. And when I do sit down and watch it, I'm reminded of just how freaking good the acting is in this movie. I gave it an 8.25.
Nice.
All right, that
Appreciate
gives
it,
us
guys.
it actually gives us 8.25 composite.
Look at that.
Somebody
Look at that.
was right.
And I'll do the IMDb thing real
What
quick.
All right, Adam Sandler.
With
I got a 7.5, I believe.
with 199,648 ratings, it's 7.8.
7.8. Okay.
Oh, look who was right. Look who was right. That was close enough.
Somebody's closer.
Any more final thoughts, guys, before we shout out our blood donors and Dustin can announce his pick for next week?
No.
I'm glad you picked this, Nico. That was good to revisit for sure.
I get that this movie's not super rewatchable. I agree with that, but I feel like I'll watch this like every December or January just because it's snowy. It's a good
Definitely a
snowy
cold
horror
month
movie.
Yep.
All right, let's shout out our blood donors real quick. We really appreciate y'all. Like, we can never honestly show our appreciation to you guys. You help us out a lot. We appreciate it. Our camp level reoccurring are Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, Carrie Adams, the Horror Movie Crew podcast, Alex Seligson, and Eric Doolittle. Our camp counselor reoccurring are Hunter Nelson, Karen, Shan Petrusevich, Dennis Kennedy, Edwin Hernandez Gunn, and Miss Joe Swinford. Our legendary blood donors, we have film reviews to do for. We've already brought this up, but looking forward to having Missy Hutchison Wall on the show. We're going to be doing her pick later this week. And our final girl donor is Danny C. Naps. Really appreciate y'all. Y'all are awesome. We no joke. We really appreciate y'all support. It helps us out a lot.
Absolutely.
Dustin, you ready to announce your pick for the final pick of female lead month?
Yeah, let's do it. So this movie featured Bobby Boucher's mama. Next week, we're doing a movie that has Bobby Boucher's girlfriend, Miss Vicky Valancourt. It also has Topical. Nev Campbell's in the film. We're doing 1996, The Craft. I'm guessing that Nico's never seen it.
I've never seen it.
Let's go.
Have you ever heard of it, Nico?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Christine Taylor's in it.
All right, just want to say thanks to all of our listeners. I really appreciate the support. One last thing I'm going to shout out. Go follow us on social media. We're really pumping out more on TikTok. We upload every episode to YouTube on top of all of our streaming platforms. We're really trying to, grow in other facets this year. Looking forward to The Craft next week. Another movie, a movie I haven't seen, so I think it's poetic justice that Dustin hadn't seen my movie and I've never seen his movie. Maybe I'll be pleasantly surprised. I'm not sure, honestly, but I'm looking forward to watching it.
You'll probably hate it.
See, don't put bad juju into the air, man.
Was never seen it month the easiest one for you to pick?
Fuck off. End this shit so I can leave. Thanks to all of our listeners. Really appreciate the support. Y'all have a good one. Just want to remind everybody.